Hey there, everyone. Russ Hamilton here. Anyway, I did an article for Corrections One a little while back. I will link to that story in the comments section here. But anyway, it's all about the times that firearms have made it to the inside perimeter or into a situation where inmates were being transported. So we're going to go over those, and there's 5 of them, and I'm listing them as 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, from the least serious to the most serious. And I just thought that this is a good thing to think about. It's a good thing to be aware of. And fortunately, this is very, very rare. But we're going to take a look at these. Before I move on to those, though, my very last day in adult corrections, I was tapped to provide support for our CERT team. And we went out to a fire camp that was run by California Department of Corrections, and took the entire camp down at gunpoint because we had intelligence that a gun had been smuggled into that camp. Fortunately, the intel was apparently wrong. We did a very thorough search of the entire camp, and we came up empty. But having said that, that got me thinking about firearms inside of correctional facilities, firearms smuggled into transport situations. And so here we're going to examine 5 of the most serious of all time. So not going back too far in time, October the 16th, 2025, Mount Vernon, New York. So 2 police officers were transporting 5 inmates to the Westchester County Jail, and suddenly they hear a gunshot in the back of the van. 1 inmate ended up being shot in the leg. The shooter, identified as Louis Soto, 32 years old, and had been arrested the day before for forcible touching. The weapon was a loaded .22 caliber Rome revolver, 1 spent round, 4 live rounds still in the cylinder, and it was hidden in his buttocks. Now, I don't know if that was body cavity concealment or just, clapping the cheeks together. The real kicker of the story is, though, that metal detector wands were optional at Mount Vernon PD before this incident, not required. There were 5 officers suspended without pay for 30 days. The department immediately made wands mandatory. That is a no-brainer. Every time you take someone out, you should be wanding them. That should be the very last thing that you do. But it's just, so, I don't know, common sense to me. I can't imagine why they had ever adopted the idea that it was an optional thing to do. So Chief Marcel Olifers said the firearm should have been detected prior to transport. Duh. The use of it was optional previously. I'm guessing that he means the wands and not the firearm. The victim survived. This is just one of the things that the more good security measures that you have in place, the less likely someone is to cut corners. So this is number 4, and this happened in New Orleans, June the 6th, 2015, a little more recent in time than some of these we're going to go through here. But Officer Daryl Holloway was transporting inmate Travis Boyes, 32, who had been arrested for domestic violence. Boyes is handcuffed and has been searched, and Holloway was driving. Boyes pulls out a handgun and shoots Officer Holloway. The vehicle crashes into a utility pole. Boyes escapes but is caught the next day. Officer Holloway is dead. Let me just pull up Officer Holloway. This is what makes the case different, though. The officer who conducted the initial search was sentenced to 5 years in prison for malfeasance and obstruction of justice. He just didn't do his job. So Search procedures aren't just policy, they're life or death protocols. And if you skip them, if you don't do them well, you could lose your job. You could go to prison, just like this individual did. So now we're going to go just a little bit further back in time to June the 2nd, 1969, Robeson Correctional Center in Lumberton, North Carolina. So there was some type of church service going on, and two inmates had got their hands on a smuggled weapon. They shoot and kill Officer Earl Cranston Strickland. I'm going to show you his picture right here. I always want to remember our brothers and sisters that poured out the full measure. Anyway, the two inmates got their hands on a smuggled weapon. They shoot and kill Officer Earl Cranston Strickland, 33 years old. His wife was pregnant at the time. The inmates take a second officer hostage and escape in Strickland's car, but they don't stop there. They drove to a nearby farm. They took a family of 4 hostage. Over the nighttime hours, 3 of them managed to escape and alert authorities. The shooter, incarcerated since 1961 for murder, kidnapping, and robbery, gets a life sentence for Strickland's death. He was released from prison in 1991. That was absolutely not justice. So anytime there's a smuggled weapon of any sort, firearm, knife, whatever, it's a huge, huge security breach. So smuggled weapons don't just threaten staff, they enable escapes, endanger entire communities. Religious services, vital for rehabilitation, something that we have to provide according to the Constitution. But sometimes those types of programs can be setups for being able to smuggle things in. I'm not sure if that happened in this case. I wasn't able to find out very much about it, but it was a horrible tragedy, especially for Officer Strickland's family. All right, now we come to number 2, Smith State Prison in Glenville, Georgia, June the 16th, 2024. Our most recent one. So it's 4:30 in the morning. Inmate Jadreas Hart, 34, shoots Aramark food service employee Orion Grace, 24, while she's working in the prison kitchen. Then he turns the gun on himself, both dead. This is the one, though, that really bothers me. There was a gun smuggled into the prison between June 30th and July 10th, 2023. That means it was inside the security perimeter for, almost a year. And the package also had tobacco, clothing, and drugs. Now, how did they know all of this? So the investigators had photographic evidence of the gun as early as January the 1st, 2024, sent via contraband cell phones. A personal relationship had developed between Hart and Grace, documented through contraband phones and seized between 2020 and 2024. Add her to the stage here. It's not clear what this relationship exactly was, whether he was obsessed or whether this was reciprocal. Despite knowing a gun was present, authorities took no action. That's just a complete defeat of Corrections 101 even. They should have tore that prison apart looking for that thing and found it. They knew it was there, but they just let it ride. This is believed to be the first case in Georgia history where an inmate fatally shot someone inside a state prison. And the warden, I guess, remained in place after that. Intelligence is meaningless without action. Orion Grace went to work that morning and never came home because officials who knew better did nothing. So now we come down to number 1, which is arguably the most infamous escape attempt in correctional history. Colloquially, we know it here as Black August, and it happened on August the 21st, 1971, at San Quentin State Prison, California. This is the one that I personally know the most about because I've researched it well. And I've also was lucky enough to actually do an interview with Dick Nelson, who was there on that day. Dick is now passed on, but his legacy really continues. When I first got to San Quentin and started learning about some of the things that happened on that day, I was very early on assigned to the adjustment center, at least for a little while. And on the one side, they used to have some quiet cells down on the end that had these doors that opened before you got to the bars themselves. And these doors had bullet holes in them. Well, Dick Nelson was the guy who actually put those bullet holes there. And we'll talk some more about him in a little bit and what happened on that particular day. But it all began with an attorney named Stephen Bingham, who went in to visit with one particular inmate who was considered highly problematic. He was already implicated in the death of at least one other correctional officer at Soledad. And so it's alleged and pretty much, I think, borne out by the evidence that Stephen Bingham brought in a gun hidden inside of a cassette recorder. So when they brought this individual back into the adjustment center, he had a wig on that apparently had been brought in the cassette recorder as well. And he had also stuck inside of that wig an Astra 9mm pistol. There's been some discussion as to whether that's the actual gun he used or not. I've heard of a couple of different things, but the 9mm Spanish Astra pistol was the one that was most talked about, at least from the people that I knew that were there that day. So as he comes back into the adjustment center, he says the dragon has come. He pulls the gun from the wig and ended up taking a number of correctional officers hostage, including, this is the one we'll talk about first, Sergeant Jerry Graham. All right, so Sergeant Jerry Graham was shot and killed. And the next one that we'll look at here was Officer Paul Cresinis, shot and killed. And then we have Officer Frank DeLeon, also shot and killed. The things that happened on that day were stopped primarily by the people that went into the adjustment center and took it back by force. And the chief leader among those individuals was the man that I've already mentioned, which was Dick Nelson. And I was lucky enough, like I say, to know him and to have worked, albeit indirectly, for him when I was at San Quentin. Anyway, I did a very long interview with him about that day, as a matter of fact, and I will make sure that I provide a link to that, which is over to YouTube with regard to that. So anyway, Dick Nelson entered the adjustment center on that day, and basically he had a Thompson submachine gun, and he put many bullet holes in the walls and the doors that day. And those are the ones that I saw so many years later that were still there after all of that time. And it was just, one of the things that links me back to that. Also, in this, in where I do the word searching right now, in the comments section, I will provide a link to an extensive piece that I did on the things that led up to Black August and the things that came afterwards that are on my Substack. So you guys can take a look at that. I also want to mention that Dick has a book out. I'm going to add that to the stage. And it's Into Harm's Way, My Life in Corrections and the Historic Riot That Nearly Ended It. And this is a great book from beginning to end. He doesn't talk just about that day, but he talks about what led him into corrections. And it made me remember all of the reasons that I got into it. And so anyway, I just wanted to put this out there. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope that it's a sobering reminder of what we face on a day-to-day basis. And everyone, just stay safe out there. This is Russ Hamilton, and I'm signing off.